Good morning, folks. This is Alexander Manzoni with Manzoni in the morning. I am so glad to see everybody. I'm back here at Vinegar Flats with the cool dude about town, Mr. Dennis Held. Dennis, how are you doing today?
So far, so good, Alexander. How about you?
Oh, well, a lot of crazy stuff happened this week. I'm doing pretty good because I'm out here and doing this. Living the dream. All right. And I'm getting a lot of work done writing, but that's another story. So let's get this started with the harmonica that time forgot. All right, let's do this. We got some new poems, some old poems, some stuff, some things to talk about. It has been a crazy month or so since the last time we came here and did this. There was a lot of snow. It was cold as hell. And shit, we've just all kind of been at home doing our thing. I hope you've been surviving, Mr. Dennis.
Oh, well, I would say the breath coming out of my mouth that there's evidence that I have.
That is amazing. I love it. I love your enthusiasm and your humble nature. Man.
I'll tell you what'll make you humble is I'm looking right over your head.
Yeah.
And there's the first robin of the year in a tree about 50 feet from where we sit.
Oh, wow.
And so that is what we call our harbinger of spring. I used to say harbinger. It took me a long time to learn that word is pronounced.
Me too. I did the same thing.
There we go.
I find that a lot of the words that I've used over the years, I didn't know how to say them. Thank God for the internet now where I could just go over those words and say them before I use them on my podcast or in my writing or anything, because there's nothing that makes me feel worse than when I'm on a roll saying something, or like I've had people stop me in the middle of my poems and say, "That's not the way you say that word." I'm like, okay, well, you could have humored me there for a second, or you could have took me to the side at the end instead of embarrassing me in front of these people, but
That's
oh well.
just a rude person. You don't have to worry about them.
Well, that's why I like the poetry a little bit better than the comedy, because I did the open mic one time at the comedy club, and it's just, people feel less apt to fuck with you when you're reading poetry as opposed to comedy, where they just think it's their God-given right to do it, you know, and it
wouldn't be so bad if they were funny.
Yeah, but I just get afraid that they're going to throw a bottle at my face.
What?
But the comedy club did open back up, and I've been toying with the idea of going back there with doing another one of my characters, but I'm a little bit afraid. It's been over a year since I've been on stage, and I think, I don't know, might be better off doing a poetry stage before the comedy stage, if you know what I mean.
I think I do.
Yeah. Well, lately we've had the Spokane In the Neighborhood Poetry Project that went up on the Spokane Arts website, and the both of us have had poems published on said site. So if you'd like to go on to Google and take a look, you will see the poems of a wide variety of Spokane poets and regular residents who like to write poetry.
What would you Google if you wanted to look that up?
Spokane In the Neighborhood Poetry.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, it's on the Spokane Arts website.
Yeah.
So I know that.
I was really excited. And then yesterday I got a message from the Spokane Poetry Slam, and they posted one of my poems on their Facebook and Instagram page. So I was really honored, because I've always wanted to be accepted. I just want to be accepted. Or do I? I don't know. I'm a lone wolf that also is starving for love and attention. I'm just admitting that right here to you, the viewer. Okay?
As are we all. As are we all.
All right. So it's been over a month. I wrote a poem the day after the inauguration, and it's called New President, Who Dis? I wrote this poem on the first morning, waking up without a psychotic madman clutching the nuclear football with demonic glee in his eye. Wow, what a feeling. 4 years of exhaustingly overwhelming insanity has reduced me to a gibbering victim, forever sobbing, worrying, constantly on edge, twitching, Doom-scrolling social media begets pure despair. It feels like I have post-traumatic T disorder. T has been edited. But don't worry, folks, the healing is already happening, and we are in the process of recovering. Isn't that something? We'll revitalize this country and our spirits come hell or high water. And this is the most optimistic I've felt since the start of Obama's second term. You remember before the world started to crumble, akin to stale dry cookies left out in a serving bowl overnight? Hope is here for us, and Biden's even willing to be pragmatic. He promises to try and work hard for both sides, not going after his enemies, ruining their lives, with characteristic terminal depravity. Love is won, for now, over the forces of division and hatred. Let us have this moment. One win, a big one. The biggest win since the one who told us we'd be so sick of winning one. The dust is settling and many remain unbelieving, but the facts are there. Biden's president. Get over it. And if you got a problem, oh well, that's America. That's living in a country where so many walks of life have so many conflicting viewpoints. And you hear them, consider them, reflect on the results as well as the potential consequences. But you don't have to prescribe to any particular ideology. No. Freedom of speech, freedom of choice, freedom to express one's voice, as long as we're not trying to overthrow the government here. Remember that the next time some joker says to you that we should start a revolution. But it's nothing that cannot be done with enough dedication, determination. We already had one civil war. We don't need another one already. Not yet, anyway. So, yesterday, the Senate finally approved our $1,400 stimulus checks. Cha-ching! I am happy, and it's really cool. This is going to be the first time that I've had a little bit of savings money on hand in many a year. I'd say that'll be the most money I've had since maybe like 5 or 6 years ago when I got on SSI the first time. But I'm not going to run out and spend it all on horseshit. Not right away, anyway. Instead, we're going to keep money to the side, and when the next disaster happens, we'll be ready for it. As much as I want a PlayStation 5, but the world is experiencing a semiconductor shortage, so even if you want one of those things, good luck getting one. You're going to have to fight some guy on eBay for it, and to be honest, I don't know if it's really worth it right now. You know, I used to fight over video game systems and things like that, but you know what? It's not worth it, and in the end, the prices will come down and the supplies will come in, and we'll all be able to enjoy our gamies, as my mother says. Now, I know that many of you who are watching this may be above that. That's okay, you know. I agree with you maybe about 50%. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Either way, we're moving forward, and we're going to keep writing. And I am wondering what Mr. Dennis Held has prepared for us today.
Well, actually, I haven't prepared too much, but I did notice that you mentioned Lawrence Ferlinghetti's passing, and I thought we might mention that on your podcast.
Oh, yes. What was he, 101 or 102?
101 years old, one of the great minds of his generation, and really more than anything, one of the great advocates for literature. You know, Lawrence Ferlinghetti opened up City Light Books with the express intent of expanding the minds of America through literature, and especially through poetry. What a ridiculous, radical, revolutionary idea that was and is. And very few people have had as profound an effect on what Americans are allowed to read as Lawrence Ferlinghetti.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if a lot of people know that, but Lawrence Ferlinghetti specifically published Allen Ginsberg's poem Howl with the intention of mailing it across state lines and notifying postal authorities that he had done so that he would be prosecuted for violating anti-obscenity laws.
Oh, wow.
And he went to court, and that case was the first of many, but the first one that established the fact that although you may not want to read it, you may not usurp someone else's right to read something that is perhaps offensive to you. And especially in its day, Howell was really a revolutionary poem advocating freedom from the Moloch, the American capitalist system, is really what it came down to. Now, in doing so, it praised homosexuality and drug use and living on the edge and all kinds of things that other people found to be objectionable, but it did so in a way that was clearly there to create a larger understanding, which to me, that's the definition of literature, to expand what it means to be human beings. And so too often I think we fall into a pattern of trying to create things that are satisfying to ourselves for the moment, but that might not necessarily answer that very difficult charge of becoming something that will last. Who knows when we write it, if it's going to be around 50 years from now, right?
That's true.
And that's actually one of the final arbiters of what makes literature literature. Does it stick around, and we're still reading Howell, and we're still talking about Howell, and all of that is thanks to Lawrence Ferlinghetti, which is how we got into this conversation. So thanks to you, Lawrence. Thanks for all your good work there, and appreciate everything that poem Howell brought, and that Ginsberg brought, especially at the beginning of the Beat Generation, when he was such an advocate for powerful expression. I think he became less so as he became more and more of a figure that was embraced by the academic, administrative poetry world, perhaps, but who among us would be able to resist that? I don't know.
That's right. I'm just waiting for the next bookstore that's going to change the world like that, Well, I mean, it's the man behind the bookstore, but, it was like the center of all that that activity where they had all these famous poets and writers gathering together. I see pictures of them smoking cigarettes in the bookstore and stuff, like with William S. Burroughs and stuff like that. So that's one of those things that I've always thought about. It was with all the obscenity laws from back in the day, and like with Naked Lunch being taken to court. And I was thinking, like, what would you have to do in today's day and age to cause that kind of effect where they're going to come down on you like that and bring you to court over what you've written? So that has kind of inspired some of my more recent writings, which are just, most people would probably say they're just crude to be crude, vulgarity, but I search through the vulgarity to find meaning inside of something and to understand, like with my last story, 120 Days of WTF. I'm trying to understand the nature behind Hollywood sexism and that hyper masculinity, where just like you have these super powerful directors that just do what they want and they treat people like garbage and they treat women like Kleenex and they're just grabbing here, grabbing there and say, oh, cancel culture. Everyone's trying to cancel me. It's like, well, maybe you deserve to be canceled. I don't know. And a lot of these things aren't actually getting canceled by, like, they're blaming Biden and the government for the Dr. Seuss books that recently the estate of Dr. Seuss decided to stop printing because of certain ethnic stereotypes that were depicted in the books.
Some of which were written, it should be noted, as early as 1936, 1937.
Oh, yeah.
and such, and not to excuse them or to say that it was right to use them, but to just help us understand the context in which they were created, the cultural milieu.
That's right.
And in fact, near the end of his life, Theodore Geisel, or Giesel, I'm not sure how.
I think it's Geisel.
Is it Geisel? But, repudiated some of those things and said, yeah, some of those things shouldn't be promulgated.
Oh, what's hilarious is that they were, there was, I don't know if it was a Senate or a congressman, they were reading Green Eggs and Ham during the session of Congress, like protesting these removals. And then other people are chiming in on Twitter. They're saying like, Dr. Seuss was a leftist, and they're quoting Green Eggs and Ham, but I bet they would want to cancel the Lorax because it's against industry and it's for saving the environment and trees and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Don't get me started on the Lorax movie they made a few years ago. That was like just some things, man. But it's interesting. It's interesting how fired up people are getting over some stuff. Like, one thing I could see why they got rid of Aunt Jemima is now Pearl Milling Company. So, good job on getting rid of the racism, but bad job on making like the most generic name ever. But we're all wondering what's going to be next, Well, who cares? Life change, everything changes over time, and I'm sure one day Chef Boyardee is going to be taken down off his can for being an Italian stereotype. Because that's what it is. Because we're getting to the point where we're running out of our little favorite stereotypes that we like to use for our products and our characters, You could still have a drunken Irishman. Oh well. The world's changing. Mostly, I'm hoping for the better. It seems like it, just one step at a time. And I think the condemnations of cancel culture is very overblown. Of course, I'm just saying that because I haven't been canceled yet.
Yet being the operative word.
That's right. I am going out of my way to have that done. Also, I just got a new shirt made, Manzoni in the morning. I am hoping that I will have more made soon, and they will be available on my website, manzoniinthemorning.com, which I have resurrected, and now you can find my short stories and my new novella, 120 Days of WTF, posted in its entirety on there for you to enjoy and rage tweet about, because it's not safe for work. You hear me? Not safe for work. Don't come crying to me if your boss fires you because you're reading horrific filth. And actually you can blame me for writing horrific filth, but I'm just
don't read it at work.
That's right. And definitely don't turn on my TikTok clips of me reading from it. So now I'm going to go into the next poem. Did you read a poem yet?
Boy, no, I haven't. But I happen to have one here. Let's see. Here's my most recent book. It's called Not Me Exactly. Available at Auntie's Bookstore. And this one references the this one references a trip down to Lenore, Idaho, outside of Lewiston. I used to teach at Lewis Clark State College. And there's a spot about 20 miles upriver called Lenore. And I went for a walk one day. Steelhead at Lenore, Idaho. A hen spawned out, all of 40 inches and dying for months now. Her adipose fin intact means it's a wild fish, bearing a lucid stripe of sunburst red from tail to gaping chin. The sea-running rainbow trout come clear up the Columbia, past the Snake's dams, now 20 miles up the Clearwater, holding in a back channel just off the bank, rotting fish trailing pale epaulets of flesh, forehead battered, eyes gone stony gray, adrift where bear and cougar hunt the night. Upriver, 2 men fish from a bridge. She's spent, she's stone blind, but sweeps out midstream at the mere quiver of my step on shore. Steelhead at Lenore, Idaho. And that's
Wow.
from the book Not Me Exactly.
That's great. Do you write that? Did you write that at home, or do you like write that when you're like out there over the water and stuff like that?
You know, every poem's a little different. I do like to carry along a little black notebook, and that particular poem started in just a series of small notes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was much, much later, I'm going to say probably a year later, that I came across that notebook and saw those notes and was able to imagine myself fully into that moment. And in doing so, remembered the fact of that fish being able to sense my presence, although this fish was completely blind,
mm-hmm.
was in an entirely different element from me. I'm out in the air, it's in the water. And it's sort of almost kind of hiding behind this log that had grounded itself in the river there. And it's able to notice just from the slight quiver of that step that something was coming up on it, and it was able to drift out and keep itself alive for that little bit of extra time. Something noble about that occurred to me as I was reimagining myself into that situation. And so and the word quiver, for some reason, seemed really important in the reimagination of that. And so probably I revisited that poem half a dozen times. It's a sonnet or a sonnet-like form. There's 14 lines in it. We had talked in one of these other episodes about that. And this one has more regular rhymes than some of them do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these poems start with hard rhymes on the ends, and then as I work on them, those rhymes go away when a more appropriate word, whether that's from accuracy or metaphoric accuracy or whatever, sometimes that word will insist on itself. It'll keep coming back, you know. So the last time on one of these podcasts we talked about some of the elements of the song. It's usually got 14 lines. Each of those lines has 10 syllables. In the traditional strictly measured sonnet, it would also be in iambic pentameter, ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. I usually leave that rhythm behind when I'm writing these poems and let the rhythm suggest itself kind of phrase by phrase, which is how I...
That's a better way to go about doing it.
Yeah. My other poems anyway, so let more of that into the sonnet-like form. And sometimes I'll rhyme like A, B, B, A, B, B, in the next stanza. So I'll change the way the rhymes go from stanza to stanza. That's the case here. So inches, fin, stripe, chin, up, dams, clear water, bank. Whoops, where'd the rhymes go? Flesh, gray, night, bridge, midstream, shore. So near the end, those rhymes just kind of go away and drift out like that fish does almost.
Yeah.
But there's still about 10 syllables on each line. They still make a turn at the end of that stanza, and it still means to exhibit the elements that I consider essential to poetry. That is, some attention to the sound, whether that's, well, however that arrives, but usually it's in the vowels and consonants provide the pitch. So like a long E is related to a long I, E-I-A, in a way that it's not related to a short E, in my view, and so those are elements of pitch. And then the other element is rhythm. and that's just from accents. English is an accentual language. Ba 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 ba, pops and moves.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you pay attention to where those sounds come and where that, and just listen in your own head to how that language forms itself into those phrases, you can begin to add meaning to your poem through that architecture. It's a kind of architecture, just like putting down concrete blocks before you build the houses. And so it provides a way into the reader's awareness and consciousness that is, they might not even be aware of it, that it's going on, but it's part of our pattern making process, as human beings. So we recognize, we slide into that. The other element I would say that's important in poetry is compression.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some thought, idea, some element of observed reality, even if that reality is your own thought process, but something that has been distilled, that's been boiled down, that's been thought through to the point that makes it worth writing. And so those are some of the things that I look for when I'm reading.
Oh, that's great. That's a great way to think of it, and just to do things, because there's huge difference between like the way your poetry brain works and my poetry brain works. So it's I find it very, very interesting to see how other people's brains process stuff, because for the most part my brain kind of just, it's like the lines come to me. Like I don't really spend a lot of time like thinking about the structure of it or anything like that. Like I'll go back later, and or sometimes it'll even all fall into place.
Right. So it's more idea related.
Yeah, like with my writing, is like, or especially my prose and it just has, I just have unwanted racing thoughts almost all the time, and they either manifest as like anxiety, like you're never going to be worth anything, you should just kill yourself right now, and then it's like I turn it into these crazy characters and stories. And it just kind of, it's weird because I really wish I knew where a lot of this stuff was coming from. In one of my stories, I had like this cult that had made a projection device that can project thoughts into people's heads, and I kind of like to think that someone's out there doing the same to me. Although if that was the case, then we might be living in the Matrix, or everything's a simulation, and then I don't know where to go from there except up.
I would say that there's a very good chance that all that stuff's coming from right inside of your own head, and it's better to embrace it. And I think you're doing a fine job with it.
We're doing it. I'm writing a new short story or a new novella every like 2 weeks. I'm creating another one, and then I write poems as they come, as I'm inspired. I've noticed that since the Orange Demon has been out of the White House, I'm less angry, and that's like a lot of my poem comes from just me having this anger and having no way to express it, because like I used to smash stuff, take a bottle, throw it against the wall, break a chair. Now I don't. Now I'm a very peaceful person. And the most aggression you say is what's going to be on, is what's on the videos, where I have a couple people that say, you can make anything scary. Someone had told me over the weekend on TikTok that I made making meatballs scary. I made a little video about making meatballs and salt, and just with the cheese and stuff. Because for some reason, my Cooking with Alex videos always get a lot of hits. I don't know. But that's always like, it's very tough for me to do, as cooking and then like videotaping at the same time, just because I get preoccupied, which is why I love editing. I don't like editing my videos, but I like going back to edit, because that's where I can really process your poetry. Because when I'm here, I kind of have to keep looking, because sometimes my phone stops recording like halfway through.
Got technical matters to do.
Yeah, well, I got like the numbers going up and down, it's doing good. But my goal is one day is getting a camera guy. I don't know how much I'd have to pay one, but one day a man can dream and I'm just kind of very slowly building up a following. Although 4,000 new followers this year on TikTok, hey, I think that's pretty good.
Boom, boom.
I'm just going
If
to
you
keep
want a
going.
camera person, I would say talk to one of the community colleges.
Oh, yeah.
They have video production programs. They have people who are looking for projects.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those people could come out and shoot this, and it wouldn't cost you a dime.
That'd be great. Well, I'd give him something, you know. I want to, you know, sweeten the pot, so to speak. Oh, over this, a couple days ago, I got a notification from my brother that the next, his podcast will be the rough draft will be done in about 1 to 2 weeks. And that is called, well, it's from Out in Left Field Land Entertainment. And it is called, Truth or Die. It's about like a radio station. It's like a fictional radio station where they're in like a weird kind of, it's a little humorous, kind of horror type sci-fi little crazy town where weird things happen, and you have like ghosts and Bigfoot calling into the radio station and stuff like that. And I recorded for 2 of the characters, and wow, that was easy. I just all I had to do is just boom, 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 got it out there, and he's putting it together, and I'm excited. I will share the link on the pages when it's ready.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. I think we're going to go, what, do you want to read a poem?
No, I think we should wrap it up so we don't tax our viewers' patience.
All right, I'm going to read, I'm going to end it with, I need this poetry. 'Tis winter, but feels more like spring. Every year has been different, and I am not indifferent to all the changes that have occurred over this expansive time. I sigh and exhale a plume of smoke, rocking back and forth with my internal metronome click, click, clicking. What am I thinking? Here it is. The sand in the hourglass pours forth. Should I change my course, or should I stay the path? What is more terrible than my own self-imposed wrath, redolent of death? How about a poet on a warpath? I tell myself, I will never give up. And the more I extol these wishes, the more I am like to believe. I need this poetry flowing through me. Turn back now, for it seems to be an impossibility. Thank you, folks. I am looking forward to the next podcast.
Poetry on the warpath.
Doing it.
That's a title.
I can't wait to join you again. Hopefully next time I'm going to do a solo podcast where I'm going to finish reading my alien story, the Anunnaki Next Door. That's going to probably take me about an hour to do. And yeah, but that's a lot of fun. I like doing that. But for now, I'm going to bid you adieu, arrivederci, goodbye, so long, farewell, and good luck.